What happens when you take the $4,000 Razer Blade Pro and reduce some of its ostentatious specifications? Well, you get a cheaper Razer Blade Pro. Today we're going to take a look at the Full HD model and tell you if it's worth it or not. Stay tuned. Before we jump in it, let's talk a little bit about the original Razer Blade Pro. So that's a 17-inch laptop with a 4K display and a GTX 1080. We reviewed it last year and we absolutely loved it. More importantly is the design. Although it's a big 17-inch one, it's actually very thin and light considering how big it is. Now, take that device and, well, let's reduce some of the specifications and bring down the price to around $2,400. Still super expensive, but you're talking a premium 17-inch laptop, and we don't get a lot of these days. The 17-inch range is very limited compared to 15-inch. So what has changed? Well, Razer has taken the display out. So instead of a 4K IGZO display, it is now full HD, which I don't really love at 17-inch for reading text at least, but for gaming it's pretty awesome. Now the trade-off is it's 120 Hertz, so it's gonna look way better. You're gonna get better frame rates for a lot of video games. The other change is going to be that video card. No longer is a GTX 1080. That's a bit unfortunate. You do get a GTX 1060 though, which is, let's be honest, one of the best video cards for the money out there. It allows you to do high-end gaming. You can't do 4K gaming, but now we don't have a 4K display, so no need to worry there. Now, what has also changed is the keyboard, and I actually like this change. So the original Razer Blade Pro has a full-on mechanical keyboard. It's low profile, it's very clicky. To me, it's like typing on popcorn. I actually did not love it, but it's one of those things some people get used to it or actually do prefer the mechanical feel. This keyboard, however, is the same one that's in the original Razer Blade 14. I like that keyboard a lot. In fact, it's one of my favorite keyboards. So besides those major changes, almost everything else is exactly the same, including the input-output ports and the overall design. When it comes to the CPU, you still get an Intel Core i7-7700 HQ quad-core processor that goes up to 3.8 gigahertz. It's excellent for gaming. Storage is also a bit different. You are just going to get a single 256 gigabyte SSD, which is PCIe and it's pretty good performance. Plus you get a 2 terabyte hard disk drive. So there is a big compromise. You can of course swap out that hard disk drive and slip in another SSD if you want to do that yourself. When it comes to RAM, you get 16 gigabytes of dual channel 2400 megahertz RAM, and that is expandable up to 32 gigabytes. That's yet another difference between this and the 4K version. The keyboard is anti-ghosting backlit chroma, of course, so you can get all those fancy RGB colors to suit your needs. And Thunderbolt 3, 3 USB 3.0 ports, HDMI 2.0, and a full SD card reader, because why not? It's 17 inches. Another small trade-off comes with the battery. So instead of a giant 99 watt hour, which apparently is the legal limit you can bring on an airplane, it drops down to 70 watt hour. And part of that is because they had to make room for that hard disk drive. Now the good news here is the battery life is roughly the same as the original Razer Blade Pro, so you're getting around 4.5 hours off of AC. That's for regular computer use. You could probably even push it towards 5 hours. It's pretty decent for a giant 17-inch laptop. Obviously, this isn't something you're going to want to do a lot of productivity on, and if you're going to game, that's going to drop down to about half that, so just keep that in mind. The other benefit here is you lose about a pound compared to the original Razer Blade Pro, so you're looking at about 6.78 pounds or 3 kilograms, which, let's be honest, is not too bad for an all-metal, precision-made laptop. Now, one of the biggest trade-offs is going to be that display. You're dropping from a 4K touch panel with IGZO that's also glossy to a full HD IPS matte display that's also non-touch. Now, this is where a lot of personal preference comes in. I really like matte displays for gaming. You may be different and prefer glossy, and I obviously understand why some people want 4K. But for me, full HD gaming is actually pretty okay on a 17-inch laptop. What I don't love it for is reading text. You're going to see a lot of jaggedness. So if you're using this for productivity, you'll get used to it, but it is definitely a trade-off. But when it comes to gaming, that 120 Hz display, along with the matte, is a pretty killer combo in my opinion, and it may be worth the trade-off for some of you. Now, one of the more controversial aspects of this laptop is its layout here. So you got that keyboard, I already talked about it. It's the same version that's found in the Surface Blade 14, and I actually really like this, and it's one of my favorite keyboards even on this device. You do have the power button on top, a little bit strange, but it allows the keyboard to sit back a little bit more, and it's definitely comfortable to use. What's a little bit awkward is this trackpad, which is going to be on the right, so if you're left-handed, you're going to have an issue. A lot of gamers, though, do prefer to use a mouse, so perhaps not a big deal. Now, this is one of the best trackpads I've actually used. I consider this right up there with Surface Book. It uses precision drivers and just feels really smooth, and it's just an excellent experience. It does take time to get used to. I will say, though, using this on my lap, I really like this layout. I think it's really fantastic. But I won't lie, I turn on this laptop a lot, and I do this, and I go for the trackpad here. So there will be some muscle memory learning as well. There's also the roller here, which you can use to adjust your volume or screen brightness, and you can assign that, which is pretty cool. You have quick access to your controls over here as well. Finally, you do get 2 speakers on the side, and you also get Dolby Digital Home Plus Theater Edition, which is nice, and 7.1 codec support through the HDMI plug. I rate the audio overall as excellent. I've always been pretty happy with Razer Blade speakers, especially being on top. They just sound really nice. If you're going to game, though, you probably also want to throw on headphones. Let's talk about the overall design real quickly. It looks like a giant Razer Blade 14-inch. That's what makes Razer Blade so interesting, is the design is always pretty similar. I actually really like it here, although I won't lie, this still picks up a lot of fingerprints, so if you have OCD, you may want to carry a rag around with you, but it's an overall nice design. It's all metal, precision built, and just feels really great to handle. Now when it comes to performance, no surprises here. The GTX 1060 and 7700 HQ processor perform as exactly expected and in line with other laptops in this class. We have very good performance for gaming, so for instance, Gears of War will play around 84 frames per second on ultra settings, which is very good, but don't forget, we are just pushing full HD resolution. Same thing with Doom, you'll be able to hit 80, 90, or even 100 frames per second depending on your settings, but again, with your full HD settings, no surprises there, and being a 1060. Overall, though, I'm pretty happy with this performance. It's a good middle-of-the-road, not extreme gaming experience, but you will be able to enjoy all your AAA titles that you play. When it comes to fan noise and heat, obviously things are going to run a little bit cooler and a little bit quieter than the 4K version due to no 1080 in there. And that's exactly what we see. I didn't find this as a very loud laptop, nor very hot, even while running under load. That is because it's a 17-inch laptop. There's obviously a lot of room there for airflow and currents, and so that works out pretty well for you as a gamer. So the Razer Blade Pro 17-inch Full HD version, what do I think about it? Well, actually, I like some aspects of this better than the full 4K version. Now, I get the 4K version. There's a lot of people buying that laptop because they're graphics professionals and you want to do high-end editing on that. With the 4K IGZO display, well, it's pretty outstanding. And don't forget, that laptop now has THX certified sound on there. So it's a very good experience, and that display is now color calibrated to be even better. If you're a gamer, though, this is a little bit more appealing. First of all, I like this keyboard better. I'm just not a fan of that original mechanical keyboard on the Razer Blade Pro. The trackpad is excellent. I prefer the matte display a little bit better, and Full HD for me is totally fine when it comes to gaming. Plus, it's 120 Hertz, so you can get really good refresh rates for a lot of your high-end games. Battery life is okay, but performance is really good. I mean, it is exactly like the Razer Blade 14. I think this is a great combination. Now let's talk about price. $2,400 is still not cheap, but that is $1,700 cheaper than the original Razer Blade Pro. That's a significant difference. You can get the exact same build quality as that device, and I really like this design. I'm not a huge fan of 17-inch laptops. They're pretty big and comfortable, but I tell you what, I like using this one, especially on my lap and just using it as a regular laptop. It's actually kind of fun and comfortable to use. Another great thing about this laptop is it's great for Windows Mixed Reality. It's actually what I use it primarily for. You have the plugs on the side, which are really lined up perfectly with the HDMI and USB for those Windows Mixed Reality headsets, and it runs Windows Mixed Reality just fine. And I realize Steam VR technically requires a GTX 1070, but you can use this with the 1060 and still run Steam VR just fine. I can't guarantee all games are going to be perfect on there, but I think they're a little heavy on that specification, and you'll be okay with it. So in conclusion, I think Razer made some appropriate trade-offs here, and I actually like a lot of these changes, including that keyboard. So if you're looking for a 17-inch gaming laptop with a premium experience, I think this is a really good choice. Now, there are definitely cheaper options out there, some that are even more powerful, so it's going to depend on what you value more, raw performance or something you want to actually carry around every day. Make sure you choose wisely. So there's a quick re-review of the Razer Blade Pro Full HD. Now, if you want more information about this device, make sure you head to Windows Central, and you can also watch a review of the full 4K version if you want more information about that device. Now, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody. Okay, it's an outro. Yeah. So that's our quick re-review, the Surface Blade. Here we go. So there's our quick re-review, the Razer Blade Pro. I know you're going to use that as don't use that as a thing. I already see you thinking like, there it is.